Welcome back to our ongoing exploration. We usually spend our energy analyzing broad cultural shifts or modern systems, but we are taking a step back here. We are looking at something that feels incredibly personal, maybe even a little uncomfortable to talk about, but it is actually one of the most practical things we can possibly discuss. We are talking about happiness.
Right. And we should probably clarify immediately that this is not the sort of manifest your best life version of happiness.
Mm.
We're absolutely not talking about toxic positivity or, just forcing a smile until the bad feelings magically go away.
No, definitely not. If this episode helps you, please hit like and subscribe for the next one.
We are looking at happiness as a project. Specifically, we are opening up a book that has been sitting on my shelf, and I finally sat down to read it properly for this series. We are exploring Bertrand Russell's work, The Conquest of Happiness.
Oh, it is a true classic. Russell was a heavyweight, right? A
hmm
mathematician, a philosopher, a Nobel laureate. But he wrote this book back between the two world wars. And what shocked me was how unphilosophical it actually feels. It is not abstract. It reads much more like a manual.
It really is widely considered one of the best examples of practical philosophy ever written. And you mentioned the era he wrote it in. Think about that context. The world was dealing with massive global conflicts,
Mhm.
economies were collapsing, and yet Russell sits down to write a book not about how to fix global supply chains, but how to fix the individual human mind.
It is striking. If you read the news or just scroll through social feeds, you see exactly what Russell was talking about. The technology is totally different, but the human software, it seems like it is glitching in the exact same way.
The bugs in the code are identical.
So let's start with the hook that Russell uses because it really grabbed me. He starts with this observation that just stops you in your tracks. He says, look at animals. If an animal has food and shelter and it is healthy, it is happy. A dog with a full belly and a warm bed is thrilled. It does not lay awake worrying about its legacy or whether the other dogs think it is successful.
Right. It is simply content in the present reality.
But then he says, look at humans. We have food. We have shelter. We have air conditioning and smartphones and medical technology that Russell could not have even imagined. By all material standards, we should be ecstatic, and yet we are not.
Largely, no. If you look at the broad data on well-being, or even just general public sentiment, we are really struggling.
He has this haunting line where he asks the reader to just walk down a busy city street and look at the faces. He quotes the poet William Blake saying, you see marks of weakness, marks of woe.
And he makes a crucial distinction there that I think sets the stage for our whole conversation. He is not talking about people in the middle of a catastrophe. He is not talking about someone who just experienced a severe personal tragedy or is living in a war zone. He is talking about ordinary, day-to-day unhappiness.
That phrase really stuck with me. Ordinary day-to-day unhappiness.
It is the feeling of having everything you were supposed to have, the career, the home, the relationships, and yet feeling weighed down by it all. It is the person who is not devastated but is anxious. They are bored, they are cynical, they're just, not great.
I think a massive portion of people listening, and honestly, myself included in many situations, fall right into that bucket. You feel fine on paper, but there is this background radiation of dissatisfaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Russell's core argument, the thesis of the entire book, is that this feeling is not a result of the universe being inherently cruel. It is not fate. It is largely due to mistaken habits of mind and mistaken ethics. In fact, ordinary unhappiness grows from habits.
Which brings us to the title. If unhappiness is a habit, then happiness is something else. Let's unpack that title. The Conquest of Happiness.
Yes, we really have to, because that word choice is very specific.
It sounds aggressive. It sounds like I need to put on armor and go to battle. It reminds me of territory or dominance. Why use the word conquest?
It does sound quite martial, but Russell chose it to challenge the prevailing romantic idea of his era, and honestly, of our culture too. There is this notion that happiness is a gift. It is something that just happens to you, sort of like the weather.
Right, like it is a vibe. You either catch it or you do not.
Or that it is of a ripe fruit that just drops into your mouth if you are lucky. And if it does not drop, well, the universe is just sad and you are a victim of a tragic reality. Russell completely rejects that idea. He argues that happiness is a conquest, not a gift.
He seems to have zero patience for the whole tortured genius trope.
Absolute zero. He argues that for most of us, in the modern world, happiness is an achievement. It is work. You have to go out and actively pursue it. Not fight against other people. This is not a zero-sum game, but fight against your own natural tendencies toward gloom and self-pity.
That is empowering, I get that. But I have to play devil's advocate here. Isn't that also a little exhausting? And maybe even a little invalidating? If I'm feeling low and you tell me to just go conquer it, that feels like you were saying it is my fault.
That is a very valid pushback, and we have to be careful here. Frame this as practical philosophy for everyday life. Russell is not talking about clinical imbalances that require medical intervention. We are not presenting this as medical advice or therapy. He is talking about the management of our daily thoughts. And in that context, he is shifting the focus from blame to agency. This approach may support a healthier mindset.
Agency. Okay, I see the distinction.
If you believe your unhappiness is caused by the nature of the universe, that life is just suffering and everything is pointless, then you are helpless. You cannot fix the universe. But if you accept Russell's thesis that unhappiness comes from specific mental habits, then you have power. You can correct a mistake. You cannot correct the cosmos.
So it is about realizing that the call is coming from inside the house.
In many cases, yes.
So let's look at the diagnosis. If we accept that we have these mistaken habits of mind, what is the biggest mistake? What is the root cause of this ordinary unhappiness?
According to Russell, and this is strongly backed up by both Stoic philosophy and modern psychology, it usually comes down to one primary thing: self-absorption.
Self-absorption, just being completely stuck in your own head.
He uses a fantastic metaphor for this. He talks about the billiard ball.
The billiard ball. Unpack that for me.
Imagine a billiard ball on a table. It is hard, it is polished, it is completely sealed off. It has no way to interact with the other balls except to collide with them. Russell says that an unhappy person is like that billiard ball. They feel completely separate from the rest of the world. They are trapped inside their own skin.
That is a profoundly lonely image.
It really is. When you are self-absorbed, you're not merging with the world. You're bouncing off it. You are constantly monitoring yourself. How do I feel right now? Do they like me? Did I sound smart in that conversation? Why does this always happen to me?
It is the narrator in your head that never shuts up about you.
Precisely. And we all have it. It is the default setting for the human ego. Russell actually breaks this down into 3 archetypes of self-absorption. They're extreme examples, but I think everyone will recognize a little bit of themselves in these.
Let's hear them. I am ready to be called out.
First, you have the sinner. Now, Russell was writing when religious guilt was very prominent, but in our modern context, this morphs into the perfectionist. This is the person obsessed with their own failure.
The person who lies awake replaying a minor mistake they made a long time ago.
Exactly. They are constantly checking their own professional or moral temperature. I am not good enough. I should have done that better. They are trapped, looking backward, totally obsessed with their own flaws.
Okay, that is familiar. What is the next one?
The narcissist.
Yeah.
And he does not mean the clinical personality disorder necessarily, but the habit of being obsessed with admiration. The narcissist does not actually care about the things they are doing. They only care that people applaud for what they are doing.
Wow. That is essentially the business model of social media.
It is. The narcissist wants to be admired more than they want to be loved. They are performing their life rather than actually living it.
And the third archetype.
The megalomaniac. The narcissist wants to be charming. The megalomaniac wants to be powerful. They want to be feared. They want to control everything around them.
Sort of the toxic boss energy.
Right. But here's the catch. Whether you are the sinner beating yourself up, the narcissist preening for likes, or the megalomaniac trying to control your environment, you all have the exact same problem. You are looking inward. You are staring in the mirror.
And Russell says the cure is to look out the window.
That is the simplification. But yes, the cure is to stop trying to fix the self by analyzing the self, and instead to forget the self by engaging with the outside world.
This is where it gets tricky for the modern listener, I think, because we live in the era of self-work, journaling, self-optimization, constant self-reflection. We are told repeatedly that the path to happiness is to dig deeper into ourselves. Is Russell saying that is wrong?
He is saying it can easily become a trap, and modern psychology backs him up on this. There's a specific term for when introspection goes wrong. Rumination is a mental trap.
Rumination. I know the word, but what does it actually mean in practice?
It actually comes from the Latin word for chewing cud, like a cow. Cow chews grass, swallows it, regurgitates it, chews it again, swallows it again. When we ruminate, we do that with our thoughts. We bring up a negative thought, chew on it, swallow it, and then shortly after, we bring it back up to chew on again.
And the dangerous part is that it feels like problem solving. We think, if I just worry about this a little longer, I will figure it out.
Exactly. We mistake worry for work.
Huh.
But rumination does not lead to a solution. It just digs the neural groove deeper. It reinforces the pathway of anxiety. Russell's genius was seeing this before we had advanced brain scans. He realized that thinking about your problems often just inflates them. The conquest is the active effort to turn your attention away from that chewing mechanism.
So this gives us the main lens for this entire series. We are calling it the conquest mindset. It seems like there are 3 clear steps here.
Right. To turn the philosophy into a toolkit, we need a structure. The first step is to diagnose the pattern. You have to catch yourself acting like the billiard ball. You have to notice the rumination.
And the next step?
The next step is to direct attention outward. You have to physically or mentally shift the spotlight away from your ego. Diagnosis directs attention outward.
And the final step?
Build simple practices. Because habits are hard to break. You cannot just decide to be happy. You have to build a new character through action.
Action over analysis. I want to apply this lens diagnose direct practice to 3 specific areas where I think we all struggle. Let's make this real. We will look at work, relationships, and habits.
The big 3. Let's do it.
Let's start with work.
Okay.
So set the scene. You are at your job. You are not being fired. The company's not collapsing. You are fine. But there's this chronic hum of tension. You are constantly refreshing your messages. You are worried about your status. You are looking at a colleague and thinking, why did they get that project and I did not?
Right. This is what Russell calls the struggle for life.
Yeah.
But he critiques that phrase. He says in the modern world, nobody in this situation is actually struggling for life, meaning struggling not to starve. They are struggling for success. They are struggling for status.
It is status anxiety. So apply the lens. How do we diagnose this?
The diagnosis is self-absorption disguised as ambition. You are not actually thinking about the work you are doing. You are thinking about you doing the work. You are watching yourself perform. You are the billiard ball, terrified of losing momentum compared to the other balls on the table.
That is a subtle distinction, but it is massive. When I am fully immersed in a task, I'm not thinking about myself at all. I am just doing the thing. When I am anxious, I am entirely focused on myself potentially failing at the thing.
Exactly. So we move to the next step. Direct attention outward. Shift the spotlight. Ask, what is the problem we are trying to solve, rather than, how do I look solving it? But Russell suggests something even more radical here to help with this. He suggests cultivating impersonal interests.
Impersonal interests. What does that entail?
It means having things in your life that have absolutely nothing to do with your ego, your finances, or your social standing. He talks about knowing the history of the trade you are in, or understanding the geology of the ground your office is built on.
Or picking up hobbies that you are terrible at.
Yes. Hobbies where you have no ambition to be great. Russell loved reading about history and looking at the stars.
The stars, that seems to be a recurring theme with these philosophers. Aurelius talks about the stars too.
He does. Russell says that when you are stressed about a deadline or a harsh message from a boss, you should take a cosmic break. Look at the stars. Realize that your problem, while it feels overwhelmingly large, is actually a microscopic blip in the vastness of the universe.
Some people find that perspective terrifying, the idea that they are insignificant.
But Russell finds it liberating. If you are small, your problems are small. It takes weight off your shoulders.
So the practice here is to deliberately disengage from the ego of work. To remind yourself you are not the center of the universe. Take a break to look at something unrelated to your status.
And paradoxically, that often makes you better at your work. Because you are less paralyzed by the fear of failure. You are looser. You're engaging with the task rather than fighting for survival.
I love that. Let's move to the second example. Relationships. This is where the rubber really meets the road.
This is where most of our ordinary unhappiness lives.
The scene is a random weekday evening. You are with your partner or a roommate or a close friend, and they're doing that thing they do. Maybe they are chewing loudly. Maybe they are scrolling on their phone while you were talking. Maybe they forgot to take out the trash. And you feel that heat rising.
Irritation loop.
You start spiraling. Why do they always do this? They do not respect me. If they cared about me, they would not do this.
Diagnose it.
It feels like I am totally justified in being annoyed.
Of course it feels that way.
Yeah.
But the diagnosis is usually the narcissist or the sinner tendency flaring up. You are viewing the other person as a mirror. You are asking, how does their behavior reflect on me? How are they inconveniencing me? You are the protagonist, and they are a malfunctioning supporting character. You are not a separate billiard ball.
Why are they ruining my evening?
Exactly. You are the billiard ball, and you are annoyed that they bumped into your trajectory. You are not connecting, you are colliding.
So how do we direct our attention outward when we are actively annoyed?
You have to stop viewing them as a mirror and start viewing them as a window. Look at them, not through them. Realize that they are a completely separate reality. They have their own inner life, their own worries, their own reasons for forgetting the trash that have absolutely nothing to do with you.
That requires a massive shift in perspective. It goes from they did this to me to they did this because of what is happening inside them.
And the practice here is simple, but incredibly challenging in the moment. Curiosity.
Curiosity.
Yes. Ask a question about their inner life, and not a passive-aggressive question like, why are you like this? Ask a real question. What was the most interesting part of your day? What is occupying your mind right now? And this is the vital part. You have to actively listen.
Listen without planning your response.
Real listening. Because here's the underlying truth. You cannot be self-absorbed and genuinely curious at the same time. They are mutually exclusive brain states. If you are truly wondering about their experience, you have momentarily forgotten your own ego.
Curiosity dissolves the ego. That forces you to acknowledge that you are not the only entity that matters.
It creates a connection instead of a collision.
Okay, let's look at the third example, habits. This one hits very close to home. Specifically, the end of a long day. The transition from productive citizen to exhausted human.
The absolute danger zone for our mental habits.
Your brain is fried,
Right.
you are tired, and all you want is quick relief. You want to turn off, so you grab your phone and you scroll for a couple of hours, or you binge watch a show you do not even really enjoy, or you pour a drink. You're just looking for an off switch.
Russell has a devastating phrase for this behavior. He calls it temporary suicide.
Whoa, that is incredibly heavy.
It is intense, but he means it quite literally. You are trying to kill your consciousness for a little while because being you feels too heavy. You are seeking oblivion, not actual engagement. You want to stop existing temporarily.
Attempting to shut down the mind entirely.
That is the diagnosis.
Yeah.
You are trying to shut down the machine rather than refuel it. You think you are resting, but you are actually just numbing yourself. True happiness comes from engagement, not oblivion.
So how do we direct our attention outward when we are completely exhausted? Because if you tell me to go learn a new language or start a demanding project when I am that tired, I'm simply not going to do it.
No, that would be treating the conquest as a literal war. We want the conquest as a sustainable practice. This is where the modern science of behavioral activation comes in, and it aligns perfectly with Russell's philosophy.
Behavioral activation, what exactly is that?
It is a psychological approach often used to support people dealing with low moods. The basic intuition we all have is, I will do the thing when I feel like it. I will go for a walk when I have energy. I will cook a nice meal when I feel inspired.
Right. We wait for the motivation to arrive.
But the science says the opposite. Action precedes the feeling.
So you have to jumpstart the engine. It will not start on its own.
Exactly. You cannot think your way into a new mood. You have to act your way into it. Stop waiting for the mood to change. You have to do something that requires a tiny bit of active effort. Not passive consumption, but active creation or connection.
But again, I am completely drained.
That is why the practice has to be exceptionally small. We are talking about the tiny habits approach. Do not commit to painting a masterpiece. Commit to doodling for a short duration. Do not commit to a long hike. Commit to a brief walk outside.
Cooking a simple meal instead of ordering delivery.
Cooking is a perfect example. It connects you with the physical world. The smells, the textures, the heat, the chopping. It pulls you out of your head and into your hands.
So the practice is to do one small thing that is real and requires effort.
Yes. One small thing that yields joy. It breaks the trance of fatigue. It proves to your brain that you are still an active participant in life, not just a passive observer. Small actions build a new character.
I love that framework. Diagnose, direct, practice. It is a loop you can run continuously.
It is. And to help people actually implement this, because it is easy to nod along and then forget it completely, we have put together a specific guided exercise. We call it the Conquest Check-In.
This is a practical tool you can use in this situation right now or whenever you feel that ordinary unhappiness creeping in. It is a mental reset button. We are going to walk through the specific steps. There are 7 of them, but they are very quick.
Extremely quick. You can do this in a journal, which is ideal, or just run through it mentally.
Okay, what is the first step?
First, name the feeling in one sentence. No long backstories. Just name it. I feel restless. I feel annoyed. I feel sad.
Labeling it takes the power away. Got it. And the next step.
Next, name the trigger in one sentence. Again, keep it brief. I saw a frustrating post. I received a stressful message. I am hungry. Be specific.
Okay. What is next?
Next, name what is in your control. This is the stoic pivot we see in Epictetus.
Yeah.
What can you actually do? I can put the device down. I can draft a short response. I can eat a snack.
And the next step.
Next, name what is not in your control. This is where you practice letting go. I cannot force my colleague to be polite. I cannot change the algorithm. I cannot change the weather.
Distinguishing those two things is half the battle. What is next?
Next, choose one outward action that is small and real. I will water the plants. I will send a kind message to a friend. I'll look out the window at the sky.
Okay, the next step.
Next, choose one calming phrase you will repeat. Russell might suggest a reminder of your place in the universe. Marcus Aurelius might say something about the directing mind, or just a simple affirmation, I'm here and I have agency. Finally, commit to one proof action. This is the tiny habit portion. Prove to yourself that you have agency. Do the thing you chose as your outward action. The conquest is an active practice.
I really like the term proof action. You are proving to yourself that you exist and you can affect your environment.
It shifts the internal narrative from feeling stuck to feeling capable of movement. And once you are moving, the feeling often follows.
It sounds incredibly elegant, but I can easily see how people get it wrong. We are wired to take the path of least resistance. What are the common traps? Where do people stumble when they try to adopt this mindset?
There are a few common mistakes. I would highlight 5 specific ones that trip people up repeatedly.
Let's go through them.
The first mistake is trying to think your way out of unhappiness.
Ah, the ruminator's favorite strategy. If I just analyze my sadness enough, I will solve it.
Right. We assume that if we dissect the negative emotion, we will find the cure. But you cannot solve a thinking problem with more thinking. That is like trying to put out a fire by throwing paper on it. You solve it with action. You have to move your body or change your environment.
What is the second mistake?
The second mistake is waiting for the mood to strike. We discussed this earlier. Waiting for motivation is a fundamental trap. Motivation is usually a result of action, not the cause of it. You have to start cold. You have to be willing to do the small action while you still feel unmotivated.
That requires a bit of discipline. And the third mistake?
The third mistake is seeking excitement instead of quiet. This is a massive issue in our culture. We assume the opposite of unhappy is thrilled.
Right, booking an extravagant trip, going to a loud event, seeking a huge adrenaline rush.
We constantly want the quick dopamine hit. But Russell argues that a happy life is largely a quiet life. He says that boredom is not the enemy. It is the soil for growth. If you are constantly chasing stimulation, you are just distracting yourself again. You are not building contentment. You are just running away from the silence.
That is profound. We are terrified of the quiet. It reminds me of Pascal saying, all of humanity's problems stem from our inability to sit quietly in a room alone.
Russell would agree completely. The conquest involves making friends with the quiet.
What is the fourth mistake?
The fourth mistake is making the changes too big. Deciding to completely overhaul your entire routine all at once. You will inevitably stumble, and then you will feel worse. Use the tiny habits approach. Make the hurdle so low you cannot fail. Read a single paragraph. Stretch for a brief moment.
And the final mistake?
The final mistake is keeping the focus internal. This is the trickiest one. Even when we try to improve our well-being, we often do it for self-absorbed reasons. I want to feel better so I can be more productive. I want to appear peaceful so others will admire me.
The spiritual narcissist trap. Look how enlightened my lifestyle is.
Exactly. You have to genuinely try to engage with the world outside yourself. Connect with the stream of life. You are part of a vast universe. Your well-being matters because you are part of the whole, not because you are the sole star of the show.
That is a beautiful image to hold on to. We are not isolated billiard balls.
It changes everything when you internalize that perspective.
Oh.
You are supported by the broader current of life. You do not have to hold everything together purely on your own.
This has been an incredibly rich exploration. It feels highly actionable. Let's do a quick recap. If we had to boil this down to the essentials for someone who wants to start applying this, what are the core takeaways?
Let's review the 7 key points we covered. First, happiness is an active conquest, not a passive state. You have to build it. Second, ordinary unhappiness usually comes from mistaken habits of thinking, not the universe being inherently cruel. Third, the root of the problem is usually self-absorption. We get stuck staring in the mirror. Fourth, the cure is directing attention outward. Look at the stars, look at your friends, look at the task at hand.
Okay, what's next?
Fifth, we must replace temporary suicide, that mindless zoning out, with active engagement, even if it is a very small effort. Sixth, use the conquest check-in to ground yourself when the spiral starts. And seventh, start with small proof actions to build momentum. Do not wait for the mood to arrive.
That is a phenomenal toolkit. And honestly, just realizing that this feeling is often a mental mistake and not a permanent life sentence is a huge relief. It means we have the capacity to address it.
It really is the beginning of freedom.
Now, we are just scratching the surface of this material. Russell's book is packed with insights. And in our next discussion, we're going to talk about a specific trap that I think a lot of highly intelligent people fall into.
Oh yes, by running unhappiness.
The pervasive idea that it is somehow cool or sophisticated to be cynical, that pessimism makes you deep and optimism makes you naive.
It is a very seductive trap, especially for analytical minds. Russell absolutely takes a sledgehammer to that concept. We're going to look at why zest, pure, unadulterated enthusiasm is actually the mark of the wisest mind.
I cannot wait for that conversation. I think I have been slightly guilty of Byronic unhappiness since I was a teenager.
We all have at some point. It is time to grow out of it.
Thanks for being here. If you want the full series, check the playlist, and please like and subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. Pass, pass, pass. Pass, pass.